If you're tired of always having to market and sell your business, maybe your retention, your referrals, and your results just aren't where they need to be. We're actually going to break that down today on today's episode. You need to make sure you have a service roadmap in place, and if you don't, then you're just cheating yourself. What does delivering results truly look like for you, and how do you make sure you highlight that in a structured way to your client, i.e. an assessment or something like that, a reassessment? At a point of getting some results and confirmation, how do you get them to re-sign for something a little bit longer, extend? And then the last piece really comes down to getting some referrals based upon you delivering high quality service and the results that they're looking for. Andrew, how are you today, buddy?
It's another day. This,
Another day.
this doctorate program's going to kill me.
It is another day.
It's going to kill me.
But
How are you?
I'm good. Today's been getting some shit done, like head down, just getting work done and everything like that. So give me a tech system to tinker with, and all of a sudden I got a lot of tinkering to do.
Oh,
Just the
there
way
you
it
go.
happens.
All the button
Talk
clicking.
right. But so fun topic today, kind of breaking down the business side of our for our coaches and everything here. But really the R3 framework is what we're going to dissect, and to remove that veil of, oh, what is R3? General idea is getting clients results, retention, so keeping them longer, getting them to ascend and buy the next thing, and then ultimately getting them to refer, the three R's that we really like to go down the road with, we build service maps with, and the stuff we like to focus on, because we both have a big belief that if you can deliver results and ultimately get clients to refer, you don't have to put as much pressure on your marketing and sales, which is a common complaint that a lot of coaches in this space have, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Yeah.
that's what we're really here to talk about today. But Andrew, top of mind on this, like, where does your mind go when we start talking about this marketing and sales versus results, retention, and referrals?
Why are you always trying to set me up, bro?
Because it's entertaining and fun. I could ask some random question that's
You're about
completely
to
off
just get
topic.
me to go off here. Yeah, I mean, and I say this a lot. Good coaching is good business, and especially in the service industry where you and your clients represent the quality of work that you're able to accomplish. And I think that a lot of people that are more, I don't know if money hungry is the appropriate term, but it is what comes to mind when I think about all these clickbaity type situations and brands and businesses that are, promising certain things that they just can't deliver on, or they do and make business decisions that are in opposition to what they say they believe, like a connection based education system that doesn't really care to connect. And in fact, we saw this with a recent development in a very prominent brand in the nutrition education space where they say that, hey, we believe in application and we believe in connection. And yet they gutted all of their connection and application based live experiences. Like it really just flies in the face of what, again, what they kind of say their core values are. And that creates a lot of weirdness for the consumer that is promised one thing and then completely gets something else. And so I think it's the same thing with coaching. People promise I can help you lose that body fat. I can help you get ready for this race, and they have no business doing it because A, remember, like good coaching is good business, but B, they just don't have the competency necessary to know how to navigate that particular problem set, which is why we say in Empowered You, if you want to earn more, you got to learn more. And so, I think that's kind of where that results perspective comes in. But I mean, I guess to kind of give our audience an idea of where this comes from, what birthed the R3 framework, and maybe give us a little bit of insight into that.
Yeah, so the general premise of R3 is every time you acquire a single consumer, a single client, you ultimately want to get three times that in terms of payments. And the way we look at it as A, you're getting their first initial payment of them coming in the door. What does that look like? Well, they bought whatever the initial package was, or maybe they are paying through the full initial commitment, right? If they're paying monthly and you have a minimum 3 month type deal, they would have made all three of those payments, just for context here. The second component of that three really comes down to they renew. They continue on be on that first purchase or that first commitment length of time because we delivered great results and they love what they're doing with us and what we're giving them. And then the last piece is they love us so much, the results speak so loudly, and they are truly a raving fan that they refer somebody to us. So imagine a world where every single time you acquire a client, you knew that you were effectively getting three times the amount of revenue for that one. There was just a little bit of a time delay to some of it. Now, I don't want this to be all like, oh, we don't care about results and we're only getting clients to get money. But the fact is, at the end of the day in business, you have to generate revenue and you have to create profits. Otherwise, the business doesn't really exist. So this isn't a lack of emotion. It's a intended to talk about the business of these things. So, what is step one? And when you go through like our blueprint and the first course of, or the first piece of our business development course, so to speak, the conversation really comes around what does a service roadmap look like? And service roadmap isn't meant to be, oh, we give them a certain type of, call it assessment, or we give them a certain type of push up, or we give them a certain type of macro breakdown. It's meant rather that how quickly can we get them a real win, right? This isn't a going and do some fake shit or whatever and just like pull the wool over their eyes and like, hey, don't eat for 5 days. Oh, you lost 10 pounds and, I'm the best coach ever. Like, no, get them a real win that is legitimate, that is safe, that is, upheld by your ethical standards and what you've learned and all of those components. But how quickly can you get them a win to celebrate, right? The faster you get the win, the better off you are. But we want to get results for somebody. And it's stacked by we want to get the quick win, that initial win, reinforce why they're doing this, but also what are some of their big goals that they truly have when they came to you and how do you make meaningful progress towards them, right? One of the big things we talk about is making sure that you understand the entire picture for a client, what they really want, leveraging all of your skills and being able to create that win. So a win for somebody might be drinking more water every day. A win for somebody might be getting better sleep. A win for somebody might be they didn't they made it to the gym once this week. Whatever their win might be, it's going to be different for everybody. But creating a win that's meaningful for that person as quickly as possible to reinforce what's going on and start making meaningful progress towards the goals that they've come with. So you on a prior episode actually mentioned, and I don't recall the number, but in terms of clients that get results from coaches, it's actually a pretty low number overall, right? So if you can get wins for people, you actually stand out among like the minority of people. What were those numbers again, Andrew? Or what is the rough estimation of coaches that actually get clients results?
Yeah, so we pulled, gosh, it's over 1,000 individuals that we looked at. And just to be clear, like, so people are listening, like, where's this data set if they care about that at all? We had a submission process at a prior company that I had collaborated with, and effectively part of their final project was to submit real life coaching clients that they had worked with for 3 months. And we found that the overwhelming majority, it was like over 75%, lost at least one, if not both of their coaching clients that they originally started with. So it really invited the concept of like, well, what's happening? And we found that of the 25% of people that were able to keep both, a significantly small fraction, I think it was like 1/3, actually got their clients to their goal in the designated time frame. So we're talking about 10 to 12% of people that are coaching professionals will get someone from point A to point B, whereas then everyone else have their clients fall out along the way. And I think that, to tie a metric in with this, like your lifetime value is a really important thing for people to measure, especially when you're looking at the efficacy of how do you know if the R3 framework is something you should pay attention to? Well, if your clients aren't finishing their original coaching contract, if they're not getting to their goals, and if they're not paying attention to what the financials look like, then you're going to see that each person that comes through your doors that signs a coaching agreement that starts with you is going to spend less money. And that's where, if you don't know what that is, you take whatever they're spending multiplied by however many months they've been with you, and that's how you calculate their lifetime value. And what Steve has created with the R3 framework here is that if you don't get results, people inherently won't stick with you. But results only matter when you get to about the probably 1 to 2 month mark is where people start to expect that. In the first 30 days, generally speaking, you got to build the relationship, which I would almost add to the R4 model. Is that if people don't like you, they're not willing to buy in. If they don't trust you, they're not willing
Did
to
you
buy
just
in. They're not
trump
willing to
my
do.
did you just trump my
No,
R3 with an R4?
I was just thinking about the relationships, and I'm like, that actually is really important as the foundational element, because if you have no trust, you get no buy-in. If you get no buy-in, you get no adherence to the plan. If you get no adherence, you make no progress. And so your lifetime value goes down. No referrals, no re-signs. And, I just kind of, as I was talking this out loud, that's kind of what I mean by good coaching is good business, because coaching isn't just program design. It's actually managing and building that relationship. So,
Yeah, and you bring up a great point, right? Like I think relationship can sometimes be assumed. Like
mhm,
in R3
yeah.
framework and as I positioned it, relationship underlying was assumed through there, right?
Hmm.
You need to have a relationship with somebody so you know what it is that they want, because most clients are going to come at you and say like, "Hey, I want some combination of lose fat, gain muscle." Like those are the biggest of the two buckets that really just exist when it comes to getting results.
Hmm.
Now, they may not literally say those words, they might use other words around it, but those are the two big things that people are going to be looking for.
Hmm.
So, you need the
Yeah.
relationship and you need to provide a result. There's quick wins, and I would say those quick wins are not sustainable or not going to attribute towards their big picture goal. They might help them move closer, but they're not necessarily the check marks that need to happen per se. And then there's the actual goals and the wins that have to happen, which is, hey, here's my chief complaint. This is why I came to you, and I'm starting to see progress here. Like, that's great. Now,
Hmm.
in a perfect world, when we go down the road of like, all right, cool, I started to create some wins. There's meaningful progress towards your goal. Now would be, and if we could, I would say to put a hard number on it. And this is super negotiable depending upon the goal, the person, the coach, like all the stuff. But just to give you a framework, 6 to 8 weeks in is when you should be looking for somebody to re sign or re up with you and continue their commitment. If you initially sold them a 12-month package and they paid it in full, do not necessarily ask them in 6 weeks to buy more, right? But like the same token, if you only sold them 1 month, obviously that number needs to speed up a little bit. So use some of your common sense and judgment there, but under the assumption that it's normally a 3-ish month commitment to sorts,
Hmm.
and you're looking for somebody to want to continue, 6 to 8 weeks is going to be that time frame. You don't want to them to be already no more payments. You don't want them to be already past kind of that only a third to go, but you want to be able to ask, hey, do you want to upgrade? Do you want to continue? Do you want to ascend? Whatever that next thing is, and think about it. Think about how much easier that conversation goes when they like the result they're getting with what they're doing.
Hmm.
Like, hey, Andrew, would you like to resign with me and spend hundreds or thousands of dollars, even though you've gotten zero result or anything yet? Like, it just doesn't necessarily work.
Too many
So,
asks in a row without giving anything is really bad for business.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Give me
Exactly.
money, give me money, give me money. Well, I want some results. Give me money first. You're like, no thanks.
Yeah, yeah,
No
exactly.
thanks.
It's rough.
Yeah.
So, through that service roadmap, quick wins leading to meaningful progress towards goals, leading to now a retention, ascension, continuation offer, upgrade offer, whatever your
Hmm.
terminology might be. And then ultimately from there, okay, great, you've signed up again, you've continued in that progress in that realm. Now we want to move towards the idea of referrals. But before we completely jump in that referral side of thing, Andrew, obviously you have a significant coaching history, and in my gyms, I have history of, training and whatnot as well. But when it comes to moving through that retention kind of ascension offer, like what are some things that you either have done, coaches have done? Like what's one of the favorite things that you've maybe experienced in that realm where, hey, 6 to 8 weeks in, this thing is going really well. Would you like to continue? The answer is of course yes. And offer presentation comes out with ideal
Mm-hmm.
timing post
Mm-hmm.
some type of assessment or whatnot, I would assume, to kind of reinforce those results. Like, talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that there's this element of, and I learned this from a guy named Danny King. So if he's ever listening to this, good job, buddy. You guys did okay at Lifetime. But the idea is that, and a kind of tongue in cheek say, give me money. But the idea is that you're trying to over deliver and create wow in an experience on a micro level. Because again, what we're talking about, generally speaking, today is considered the macro level. Like, what are all the people involved in the business, both client, consumer, company, business owner? Like, what is everyone trying to, suss out? But in this case, we're looking at more from the client experience perspective of, how do we know when someone's been appropriately seated in order to make someone that's more amenable to or more receptive to an offer, right? And that's something that may require a little bit of patience, but it requires you to pay fucking attention. And what I mean by that is that, first of all, build a relationship, right? Deliver consistently great service, leave people feeling better when they leave your session or your appointment or your meeting than how they showed up. Those are like the prerequisites. Those are considered table stakes. And if you don't know how to do that, we have courses and stuff like Empowered You that are really intended on just like mindset and coaching relationships, which are foundational for making anyone willing to take your coaching. So, but the idea, we're referring back to Danny King and kind of this idea of a light bulb moment, which is where someone has an epiphany and it's really challenging to try to lead someone to a specific outcome or an idea, right? If you've ever, and I remember there was a guy named Jim, and I won't use his last name, but Jim was a client of mine for about 18 months. And he was seeing me 3 times a week when I was a personal trainer. And he was paying me about $170 a session. So you do the math. He was paying me over $2,000 a month. And it was really interesting because he was a mountain of a man. And we always used to have this thing called a grip dynamometer. He'd come in and his favorite thing to do would be to almost max it out. The guy was built like a gorilla, 6'3", probably like 230. Like, he probably should have been a linebacker. The dude wouldn't fucking eat vegetables. He owned a company that was doing very well. And in fact, we were trying to help him get and navigate some back pain. And we did all the appropriate fitness stuff, but he wasn't drinking water. He wasn't getting any sleep. He just refused to take care of himself
You
outside of
heard it
that.
here first. Eating vegetables fixes back pain.
Yeah, 100%. If you didn't know broccoli is the cure, fuck you, Stuart McGill. No, I'm just kidding. No. Please don't. Please don't cancel me, Stu. We love you. But yeah, so he always refused to do that stuff. And it wasn't until after our relationship ended that he finally decided to eat some broccoli. But my point with that whole gym, business owner experience was that he wasn't receptive to that. And so how did I keep a guy that wouldn't eat vegetables, that was really bad at taking care of himself the other 165 hours a week, was because I did my best to listen to what he wanted to more or less do and see and feel. And I facilitated every session to do that. And then one day he slept 6 hours instead of 4. And he's like, man, I feel so great. And it was within like the first 3 to 5 weeks. And if you're not maximizing sleep right out of the gate, you're missing the boat. But he felt better. He was really excited. He's like, oh man, I slept so well after our session yesterday. And I drank some water. And like, it kind of turned into this decision-making snowball where, because he felt less tired, he felt like he could more or less navigate fatigue. It created this light bulb moment where he saw value in a behavior that was associated with his goal. And so what we're always trying to do is create like, what you're doing, what are you getting? What are you doing? What are you getting? What are you doing? What are you getting? That's really the nature of coaching. If you can do that against the backdrop of what do you want, and then what are you going to change on the front end and the back end, that really creates a potent coaching system to where now you have meaningful conversations. People see the value, like, oh, wow, I see that drinking water, I haven't felt as shitty this week. And you're like, oh, that's kind of crazy. But the way you bridge that in a business or an offer is effectively you're trying to create these little moments, and you seed a lot of things in there. Maybe you give them some water recommendations, maybe you give them a macro prescription, maybe you go protein, maybe you actually decrease their protein because they have a lot of bloating, and a lot of people are always really gung-ho like, let me push more protein. Well, you need to calm the fuck down, because some people just need a little bit of a slower ramp versus going from like 40 grams to 180 grams. Like I saw that a lot in those coaching programs and stuff. What the fuck are people doing? And that's usually what actually led to clients leaving, is that it was just really uncomfortable and they didn't adhere. And then they were like, well, why am I paying money for a program that doesn't work? But yeah, light bulb moment. They're like, wow, I see the value. And they say, hey, great. I have, we have a month together or whatever. Like, I have this slot slated to open up to someone else on my wait list. Would you like me to hold it for you? And that's basically how I would always have that re-sign conversation of, we'll keep it on EFT or we'll keep it on recurring. And then you just give me a 30-day notice whenever you're ready. And I wasn't a big package person, because I would prefer to see the recurring revenue, because it created a sense of safety. It was almost like setting up your salary. So that's more or less how I bridged light bulb moments into the offer, based upon what the results and the experience that we're getting.
Yeah, when I owned my gyms, one of the things that I always did was you could buy monthly or you could buy a package, and the package, because it was money up front, was discounted depending upon how many you purchased,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
3 months, 6 months was cheaper than 3 months worth, a year was cheaper than 6 months was. And the conversation that would always happen was, okay, so you're buying 6 months of training included in that, and whatever, 6 months of training twice a week, whatever it is,
Mm-hmm.
we would break that down, but we'd always include, oh, it also comes with a certain amount of assessments, which are separate sessions, because sometimes, especially in person, people view going through protocols and things like that as a waste of time when they could just work out, we started to find. So they were assessments, they weren't sessions that were being used,
Mm-hmm.
and we knew we were using them roughly every 6 weeks depending upon their travel schedule. So if somebody was to purchase a 3 month package, and or all of our monthlies were a minimum of 3 month commitment, what we would do after that initial assessment, after we saw some type of result, and almost everybody, our demographic was, they were just getting back into working out. So getting them to move and drink some water alone would prove to generate a result almost
Yeah.
every time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not like a fake result. Like literally they would lose 6-7 pounds over the course of 6 to 8 weeks, and
Mm-hmm.
they felt great. Well, what we would do is say, hey, when we initially sat down, you chose the 3 month option, which was fantastic, and we're excited and look at these great results we've gotten in just 6 weeks. What we like to do is, if you'd like to upgrade to one of the other options, we'll honor just the price difference. So effectively, oh hey, 3 months was 3,000, but 6 months was 5,000. Well, hey, just an extra $2,000 will
Mm-hmm.
get you 3 more months
Mm-hmm.
instead of rebuying the original $3,000 or $1,000 per month. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ways to say the math, and oh, you're saving this much, it's a third cheaper, or you're saving 1,000. There's all those things you can throw
Yeah.
out there. But in that moment of, we got results, would you like to extend? I will honor what I presented to you in the beginning, so I look like a
Mm-hmm.
rock star of giving you a discount. And
Mm-hmm.
we had over a 50% success rate of people wanting to continue and
Mm-hmm.
buying the next larger package right then and there. And it was one of the things where, just time it well and have the appropriate conversation with the right offer. For us, we weren't really discounting, because it was, you could have bought this up front. Just in that smaller transaction, it looked smaller, but over the big picture, it leveraged out to be the same as if they
Mm-hmm.
purchased up front. So that was
Yeah.
one way we would always do that too with packages. And then with monthlies, conversely, we would say, hey, if you want to make it a 6 month commitment, we'll actually give you a 10% discount off the monthly rate instead of just your 30%, or instead of just your 3 month commitment. We can go down that road after 6 weeks. And a lot of people would also opt to go ahead and do that. Sure, I'll save 10%. That's great. And they'd save 90-ish something dollars per month on that recurring transaction by committing now to 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was a service roadmap. Like, it was just baked in. It's what we were going to do to everybody.
Yeah.
And if people weren't getting results, which some people didn't, we would still have that conversation with them. And in the nicest way possible, a majority of the time why people weren't getting results is they just really weren't attempting to do any of the work. Because you can come see a personal trainer for an hour and a half, 2 hours a week. There's a lot of other hours a week, 165, 166, that those matter. They add
Mm-hmm.
up. So,
Mm-hmm.
but so
Oh,
anyways, those
100%.
were some great kind of retention ascension ways to get people in. And then moving on to that step three of R3 here. So the referral side of things, it really comes down to you have to have the relationship. They have to believe in your ability to provide a result enough. And there's also a piece of like, they need to not be ashamed around the fact that they're going to see you in order to refer you. And that's one of the big things that you have to make sure you work through. A lot of people kind of like, I like to keep my coach a secret type mentality.
Mm-hmm.
There are also a lot of people that love to tell the world they have a coach. You know, like how do you know somebody does CrossFit? They'll tell you. How do you know somebody's a vegan? They'll tell you. Things like that, right?
They look like shit. I'm just
but
kidding. I'm just kidding. Plant-based people, I love you. There's a place for
but
it for sure.
but as we go through it, the what we would then stack in, we got them some results, we got them some quick wins. We then were able to get them retained by getting them to buy the next thing. If they did all of those things, it was very logical to say that they like what they're getting from you. So their very next session in, we would then present them with an offer and ask, hey, do you have anybody that you know that could use our help? We're always looking to expand our impact on the community, the whatever, you know, if you're online, obviously it's going to be on your network or whatever it might be. And in exchange, what I love to do, because frankly, at the end of the day, it's always nice to be able to bring people in that I know are friends of great clients. I'm making you feel good about yourself. I give you three, and at the time it was always 3 sessions. I give you a free month of coaching, whatever. But I also will give that person that comes in an extra month for free, an extra few sessions for free, an extra thing for free as well, just because they know you. And it's your ability to give somebody a little bit of a gift, kind of, right? So, hey, help me. I like this. You're awesome. I want more awesome people. Oh, you can also give them a present type mentality. And
Mm-hmm.
here's the thing. I promise I'm not going to go and spam them or anything like that. Give me their name, email, and phone number, et cetera, et cetera. But that all said, I'm going to actually send you the thing to go ahead and give to them. And if
Mm-hmm.
I don't hear back from them after a
Mm-hmm.
couple of days, then I'll reach out just to make sure that they got it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Mm-hmm.
how I would usually set that conversation up. And time again, here's a person or two, and yeah, go ahead and reach out. And less than half the time, they would actively reach out to go have the conversation. But I already preemptively gave myself permission to reach out to them when I didn't hear from them in a few days. So after 2, 3 days, hey Andrew, it's Steve over at just wanted to reach out. Your buddy whatever reached out and said that you might love what we're doing here. We've been able to do this. Let's chat and just go down that road. And oftentimes, I would say about 50% of the time that the conversion there was definitely a little bit lower because not everybody's ready to go commit. But we would say about 50% of the time, people would actually come in and buy some packages, buy some
Mm-hmm.
sessions, and start going down the training route. So, in
Mm-hmm.
terms of your stories on that referral side of things, Andrew, like what does that look like for you?
It was actually in my later times, it was actually a little bit more challenging when I went online and when I worked with a lot of, executives basically, because it was one of those where they didn't want to share that they were getting help. And, it kind of came with the population. So I definitely had to be a lot more mindful of how I would ask for that stuff. And it turned into more of anonymous social proof for me. But prior to then, when I was in, and that was on the online space specifically. But when I was having to solicit, and it would just happen though, you would occasionally get people that would just have this thing. And ultimately I was always trying to, and just for clarification to everybody listening, like I would try to get rid of my clients as fast as possible. which is why I charged more up front. So that way they would pay more attention and ultimately they would value the service delivery exchange significantly more. And they were more willing to do the things that they had to do. But when I was, a brick and mortar trainer, there was definitely, and I would always look for those light bulb moments, either for a re-sign or a referral. I'm like, oh, okay, where's this going? And I would deliberately never look at my paychecks for the first year and a half or two that I was coaching. I'm not suggesting that anyone do that, but I genuinely did really care about, and the only thing I really cared about, and I tend to be a little bit more of a zealot, is that I was doing the thing that I love doing, which was helping people solve problems from a physicality perspective. And you know, um, what ended up happening was that I built a big waiting list really quickly, and the only way I did that was because in the service delivery industry, meaning you are providing a service, you are delivering a service, you have to go and serve. And a lot of people balk at like, well, I don't want to do it for free. There were so many free sessions that led to referrals, and so I was generally pretty clear, and that's where the majority of my the bulk of them would come from would be these free sessions of like, hey, here's this thing. Let's go do this assessment. Let's see what your problems are. And let's give you a tentative plan. I'm not going to give you the tactical how to of like, do this specifically, these sets, this rest, this way. It'd be like push, pull, squat, hinge. This is probably the density of that. This is probably how much you should do, how long your workout should be. If you want me to craft that specifically for you, we can work together and we can talk about that. But that's more or less how those assessment sessions would go. And, people would turn around and think, wow, this is really valuable. And I would check in with them, see how it went. I'd say probably about a third of the time they would then purchase training or coaching. And then the other times I'd like, hey, was that valuable for you? And people say yes. And then I would solicit like, is there anyone else that you think might value this particular experience that you think may be dealing with a problem that you think I could help? And then they would generally say, yeah, sure. There's, a couple people that I know of, and I would collect a name. And then because we had their contact info at the company, I would just reach out directly and I'd usually put them in a three-way text. Like, hey, such and such recommended that, or said that you might value some of the experience that we had. Would love to help you out if you ever have anything that you would like solved or any kind of aches and pains or any kind of weird gut issues or yada, yada, yada. And whatever skill set that I thought they might value, I would highlight that in that small exchange. But that's where I really built that waiting list because I would basically take one free session and I would turn it into two or three. And those two or three then turn into another two or three. And quickly, I think my list by the time I was done at this company was somewhere north of 1,800 people that I could sift through and cycle through that have done something with me. That anytime I had a client slot open up, I'd ping them and be like, hey, there's a slot that's opening up. You mentioned this. Are you still struggling with that? Can I help you with that? If yes, cool, boom. At the end of that, whenever we would accomplish the goal, usually you don't want to wait until your last session to ask for the referral or the re-sign. Probably about the 80% mark. Comes up, hey, slot's going to open up. Do you want to keep it? Yes or no? You don't want to keep it? Cool. Is there anyone that you can think of that you think would value that? And that's where I would add that re-sign or referral would be that point where I would ask to help either fill the slot with themselves or someone else.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And like keeping it at that 80% mark where, hey, I know that this is still full for the next 20% of time, but I got to fill it after that. Like make your problem their problem for a moment.
Oh,
Anybody else that I
100%.
can squeeze in there, I think is
Yeah.
fantastic. So,
Yeah.
but,
Get that relationship. Like, it definitely becomes, hey, can you support me? Like, I've helped you with your specific thing. And you give people the opportunity to contribute. If you're a shithead, you delivered really shitty service, you didn't write programs, you watched TV and you dug your thumb up your ass while you were in the session, which happens a lot in the training industry. And it's really unfortunate to see. Even at bigger, luxury clubs, like, you got to step that shit up. And if you're struggling to grow your business, chances are your service delivery is suffering and you could really benefit from the R3 framework. So you should probably hop in the next, it's not a BBC, but the next blueprint, the blueprint.
there we have it. A little bit of a shorter one today, only about 30 minutes. But as we think through this, you need to make sure you have a service roadmap in place. And if you don't, then you're just cheating yourself. What does delivering results truly look like for you? And how do you make sure you highlight that in a structured way to your client, i.e. an assessment or something like that, a reassessment? at a point of getting some results and confirmation, how do you get them to re-sign for something a little bit longer, extend, ascend, whatever your terminology might be. And then the last piece really comes down to getting some referrals based upon you delivering a high quality service and the results that they're looking for. So if you don't have a service roadmap in your business, get it in there. It's not a black and white thing. You still need to be a human. You still need to understand it. It needs to be flexible and work within your world. But if you don't have it at all, you're definitely going to miss it. If this helped you, please share this. Please like this. Please rate us, subscribe, and send some comments. We need to know what questions you guys need answered. That way we know what to put out here that's going to be helpful for you guys. But until next time, gang, have a great day. Go crush it. And thanks for tuning in to Beyond the Pump, the podcast about the business of fitness and nutrition for coaches by coaches. Peace.